apprentice skates by. Penders the hedgehog, no contest on the copyright. Penders the hedgehog, Penders, he can really sue. Penders, he just might sue me too. Penders took it on 2009. Look out, DMCA claim. Penders the hedgehog, what's in that settlement you made? Penders the hedgehog, Penders, he can really sue. Penders, he just might sue me too. Penders took it all 2009. Took it all 2009. Took it all 2009.
I finally figured it out. Ken Penders. I finally got to the bottom of it all. It took me 2 weeks. I haven't shaved, I haven't bathed. I've only survived on a small diet of apples and brown rice. But I did it. I fucking did it.
The good times. What's up, Magix forums? I'm back and I'm black. By the way, don't ever buy a Magix music product. They will not help you if something goes wrong with your product. So I got a little riddle for you guys. What do you call someone who is like a fan of something, whether it be a movie, TV show, video game franchise, comic series, whatever, who becomes professionally involved with someone who is licensed to create content for that property, only to try and hijack it or hijack something from it for personal gain? And then when they kind of don't get their way with that, they take that property and they crash it right into the publisher that hired them to work on the IP. You might call them something like, I don't know, a dumpster arsonist, maybe a crash conductor. You might call them something like a professional kamikaze, maybe a suicide bomber. No matter what you call them, the damage one individual person can do to an IP is very real. And the wake of destruction that they leave in an industry can last for decades. This can happen to any industry, any company, any IP. Take, for instance, I don't know, the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Now, before you start with the, oh boy, Sonic, I guess Hazen Cruz is autistic, just know that I myself am not like a huge fan of the Sonic series. Like, you know, I played a couple of the games as a kid. They were fun. I never like beat one or anything because I didn't have a Sega Genesis. The main thing I remember really liking as a kid was the cartoon series. It used to come on, I think, Fox or something way back in the day. And it was entertaining as a kid. They had all these different little weird settings you didn't really see in the game. And later in life, I sort of heard that the Archie comics series of Sonic was sort of similar to what you saw in those cartoons. It was like a post-apocalyptic sort of setting. Robotnik was trying to roboticize everybody. There was like, you know, wizards and like weird shit like that. You don't, you know, what's that got to do with Sonic? But it was in the show, and it, you know, it was like, okay. As a kid, it didn't bother me. So I thought like, well, maybe the comics will be cool. Maybe I can recapture some of that nostalgia by reading through some of the comics. And I never did get to read through any of the comics as a kid, but it was the desire to read through the comics as a kid, the Archie comics series of Sonic, that led me to the discovery of this dumpster fire that I have absolutely got to show you guys. Enter this man, Ken Penders, responsible for such amazing works as Sonic Live and most of the existing run of the Archie Comics Sonic series. Now, if you've ever watched the old 90s Sonic cartoons produced by Deke with Jaleel White, aka Steve Urkel, voicing Sonic, and also his sister and brother, you probably remember some of these characters. Now, even though these characters were pretty pivotal in the old cartoons and mostly well received by people who like these series, you never really see them or any of the dark dystopian settings and situations used in those cartoons in any of the video games. Instead, we got shit like Silver the Hedgehog and the occasional weird human character. Never really felt like those human characters belonged in Sonic. I know I always personally wondered why it was you never saw these characters in any of the Sonic games. I didn't play a lot of the games, but I never did see them in any of them. Well, as it turns out, some of these characters, along with many others from those TV shows, were in fact used in a BioWare game that released in 2008. Now, I never heard of this game until almost 10 years after its release, and I've always wondered why that was too. I guess EA and BioWare just couldn't get the marketing right or something? Because I know around 2008, a lot of people, including myself, would have went gaga over a fucking Sonic game that had stiff shit from the old cartoon in it. Like, that's a lot of my friends who played these games and stuff really wanted to see those things. They never understood why either. We never saw them in the games. Now, it turns out the game was awful. It turned out to be kind of a mechanical mess. The Sonic stuff doesn't really work great in the RPG environment, is what a lot of people said. Some people liked it. One thing everybody can kind of agree on is the music really didn't even work properly. It was like looking for VST instruments that weren't loading or something. I have no idea what the fuck that is. I don't even know how you fuck that up. And I make music. You can check out my SoundCloud. And the writing for it was said to have been kind of a big poopy stain. Some people, you know, again, that's something the jury's kind of out on. People argue. Some people say the writing was good. Some people say the writing was bad. I don't know, I didn't play it. But why didn't you ever hear about this game? What about this game caused it to not be plastered everywhere like every other fucking Sonic game that came out? And why hasn't anybody ever tried to use the characters and settings from the TV show or this game again in a more mainstream type of Sonic game? Who owns these characters and concept is not Archie Comics, Deke, or at least Sega. It turns out the dystopian futuristic setting and the futuristic cyborg versions of some of the characters were somehow recognized by the US Copyright Office as copyrighted by Ken Penders in 2010, seemingly much to the surprise of both Sega and Archie Comics, not to mention a lot of Sonic fans. When I say that these characters and situations and settings are copyrighted by Ken Penders, I don't mean they're copyrighted by Ken Penders via Sega. I know Sega and Archie Comics have no claim to these characters. They have no claim to these settings. They have no claim to these situations, these concepts. They are copyright of Ken Penders and only Ken Penders, a guy who just wrote for the Archie Comics series of Sonic for a couple of years. He somehow owns the copyright to these fucking characters and shit. So here's a timeline of events of what happened. January of 2009, Ken begins filing the necessary paperwork for copyright registrations of the characters and stories he contributed to the Archie Comics Sonic series while working under them as a writer and artist. Ken apparently does this without notifying Sega or Archie Comics. Now, as part of the normal copyright process in the US, notifications were sent out to both Sega and Archie, letting them know that this man was trying to claim something that they claimed to have copyright over. But somehow, someway, both Sega and Archie Comics failed to challenge Penders' registration application. Keep in mind, this was all in between 2009 and 2010. Email and social media are all pretty commonplace. These notices were sent on April of 2010. And even if they were sent by regular physical mail, they went uncontested for at least a full 2 months by both Sega and Archie Comics Publishing somehow. 2 months later, June of 2010, the US Copyright Office officially began filing Penders' uncontested copyright claim on the stories and characters he introduced, and old Ken received legal documents from the Copyright Office detailing his shiny new ownership of them. So it likely came as a shock to Archie and Sega when they finally were served public notification of Ken's new copyright documents. By Ken. November 23rd, 2010, this holiday season, Archie Claus delivers a formal lawsuit to Mr. Penders in an attempt to now, nearly a full year later, try to win back legal ownership of these characters and settings that Ken had obtained federally recognized ownership of. Archie alleged that Ken had breached contract by filing for copyright in the first place. May 2010. Ken files a lawsuit against Sega and EA, claiming that Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood uses characters, concepts, and situations that are based on or very closely resemble his recently copyrighted contributions to the Archie Comics series. Ken's on a spree, and has in the eyes of some gone mad with power. September 26, 2011. Ken's suit against Sega and EA is dismissed without prejudice, meaning that Ken and his team could potentially refile the case. September 30th, 2011. A mere 4 days later. Ken's legal team wastes no time in refiling the case, an identical action against Sega and EA, 4 days after it was dismissed by a judge. February 2012. Ken and his legal team's suit against Sega and EA are dismissed a second time. May 2012. Ken files an appeal with the California 9th Appellate Court regarding his case against Sega and EA. despite a warning from the original judge, Otis Wright, who had already dismissed the case twice and would dismiss it again the following year. It was somewhere around this time Archie Comics fired its legal team and replaced them. Possibly because they couldn't find a way to win back ownership of Ken's copyrighted shit. July 16th, 2012. A judge rules against summary judgment for the Archie V. Penders case. All claims and counterclaims are dismissed with prejudice, meaning that neither Archie nor Ken can refile them, because an agreement had been reached outside of court. November 29th, 2012. Archie and Ken sign a term sheet of agreement, and a mysterious confidential settlement agreement is formalized the following year in June. Shortly after, in October 2013, Sonic the Hedgehog issue 252 is released, and the terms of the settlement take effect, wiping many of the characters and almost, if not all, the continuity, including Ken's contributions from the series, entirely. Writers and editors scramble to create something new, but something familiar. Characters obviously lost or left in limbo from the settlement agreement vanish forever, never to be seen again. Later that same month, in October of 2013, the California Ninth Appellate Court upholds the original dismissal for Penders' suit against EA. Penders was forced, due to the statute of limitations, to cease refiling this same suit again unless the characters and concepts from the games were used in a future work. Here's a little audio from that hearing in the Ninth Appellate Court. I hope I'm saying appellate right. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, maybe you can go ask Nick Rekieta. But here's some audio from this hearing. Just listen to it.
Good morning, Your Honors. May it please the Court, Chris Harshman appearing for Appellant Ken Penders. The last time this Court seriously visited the first-to-file doctrine was in 1991, more than 2 decades ago.
And you haven't refiled because of the District Court's order in Los Angeles?
That's correct.
Okay.
Say that again. What happened to the New York Act?
Settle,
if you talk slower,
my
I can
apologies.
follow you better.
You have here a judge that sounds like each breath might be his last. He sounds like he is 180,000 years old. And a guy who does not even know how much money this game made, which was nothing. By the way, I don't even think the game broke $1 million. I don't think it made $1 million.
First California
He dismissed it
Without prejudice.
without prejudice. I'm sorry.
That's correct.
That's what so he went contrary to the stipulation.
That's correct. And
Right, and when you came back again, he was really angry, wasn't he?
I wouldn't presume to know the emotions.
Weren't you there? Weren't you there?
No, Your Honor. This was done without
So
law.
you weren't there at all.
Well, he threatened sanctions.
He threatened sanctions.
We filed the
not
third
happy.
time.
I mean, what he said. Well, then you filed again.
No, Your Honor, we did not. That was
Look, he dismissed the complaint, and then 4 days later, the same thing was filed again, because someone who filed it knew that if you dismiss it, without prejudice, and there's a 3-year period in which you can collect damages. And when in this, and I don't know anything about these games that people play with, but I understand that when they hit the market, you got about a month when the slot machine drops all the gold out of it, and then it diminishes. So you've got to be there with your hat under the machine to get the money as it comes out. If your hat isn't there, you don't get it, right?
That's our understanding, yes.
Well, that's the way it works.
Okay.
So that's why the people on your side went, and even though the judge said he's dismissing it with leave to amend, they filed the same thing 4 days later. That has to be the reason for it. And then when he came back, he tossed it out, and then he filed this order, and September the 20th, 2011, the parties in the California action stipulated to stay that action pending resolution of the New York action. Stay, not dismissal.
Your Honor,
Let me finish.
I'm sorry.
Recognize that claims plaintiffs asserted in the California action were based on the same alleged infringement at issue in the New York action.
In addition, the parties expressly noted in their stipulation that plaintiff's claims in the California action would be directly and significantly impacted by the outcome of the New York action. On September 26, 2011, this court issued an order dismissing the California action without prejudice, finding it more appropriate to dismiss that than to stay it. Now, why was it more appropriate? You know why?
I don't know why, Your Honor.
Well, I'll tell you, because he took it off his calendar. And the district judges, you know, they have calendars now with about 600-700 cases. You understand that? When I was on the district court, I had my calendar at about 110, 120. In doing so, the court noted that plaintiff could refile his claim in this court following resolution of the New York action. Now, when was that resolved? Just recently.
Fairly recently, Your Honor.
How long ago?
My fingertips.
When was it resolved?
It was settled, and we were no longer.
When?
I don't know. We weren't counsel in that matter at that time.
2013? 2013, this year?
I believe 2013.
So who do you represent today?
Mr. Penders, but we no longer represented him in that New York action.
Well, don't you know the history of this case?
This guy has, Ken's counsel has no idea how much money this game even made. He has no idea, like, what's even at stake if they win. And this is the third time. This is they've filed this case twice and it's been dismissed. They're appealing it now. They're appealing that decision now. Why? It seems the dark times were finally, at the end of October 2013, coming to a close. But there's still one thing that nags me about this. Why would Ken Penders go through all this trouble? It's very understandable that a creator would want some ownership over the shit they create. Okay, I agree. I understand that if you are working on a series, even if it's an already created series with a created setting, created characters, if you are creating new characters, new settings, new stories for this stuff, I agree it's not unreasonable to want some ownership of that, to want some royalties, to want some control over how that's, you know, treated. I totally get that. I don't disagree with Kent there. But why the fuck are you suing EA over a game because some of the stuff in it used some of the stuff that's like your contributions? And especially, why the hell are you doing this a full 2 years after the game was released? Released, not in development. The game was released. It was on shelves, ready to buy 2 years before you ever even claimed, before you ever even got any documents proving that you had copyright over this shit. Which you shouldn't have 100% copyright over it, by the way. I disagree with that. And a full year before you even filed for ownership on it. Why? Why did it take almost 3 years for Archie and Ken to reach some kind of an agreement on who could use these characters for what and who would get paid what royalties? Why did Archie pursue Ken in a legal battle if they had almost no hope of winning it? Archie lost the case because they could not produce a contract to the court stating that Ken had signed a contract saying that he doesn't own any of these characters and settings and shit. They couldn't provide it. Did they not know? Did they think they had that contract somewhere until this court case started? And then they started like, oh, we got to produce the contract. Somebody get a copy of it. Where is it? Like, did they not fucking know that they didn't have this until then? To me, that seems like they thought they had it, or they did have it and it got lost, or something happened to the contract. I don't know if it'll ever come to light which one of those things is real. I don't think it's out of the question here to say that there's a possibility some sort of corporate espionage thing happened. Is that crazy? Am I crazy? I don't think that sounds too crazy. That surely doesn't sound too crazy to me, and I think the motive is definitely there. The other thing I want to know is who the fuck checks the mail at Archie and Sega, because 2 months this guy was claiming copyright on shit that you have owned forever. 2 months! And nobody checked the mail. Nobody went into the mail and said like, oh damn, this guy's, whoa, what are we gonna do today? This guy's trying to copy, he's trying to copyright our fucking characters and shit, dude. We gotta contest it. Well, you know, all they had to do was contest this shit. And if they would have contested it, they would have won that immediately. There'd have been no question in anybody's mind. They would have said, no, you can't have copyright of that. What the are you crazy? But because nobody contested this, he got it. Why was Ken so hell bent on owning these characters and shit? I mean, the stuff he created really only sort of works in the Sonic universe. It's like Echidna characters, like Knuckles is an Echidna. It's like the same type of characters that he is. Cyborg versions of existing characters in the Sonic universe. Settings and shit that really only made sense in the Sonic universe. What's he gonna do with them after he leaves Archie Comics? Well, the answer is this Revolution 60 looking shit right here. Just look at it. Ken did all this legal shit for 3 fucking years, pissed off judges, probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, destroyed this comic universe that all these fans loved, and ensured that these characters would never be seen again. Also, he can make this shit. This was his master plan. Just look at this shit. It's fucking nightmare fuel. I wouldn't fight for 3 minutes over ownership of this shit. And you guys have heard stuff I've made. This new original story, Do Not Fucking Steal, that Penders is shitting out, seems to center around a female Echidna character that he created while he was working for Archie, named Lara Sue. Or Lara Sue, I don't know. And it appears to take place in a futuristic setting of Mobius from the story arc he developed while he was working for Archie as well. But he has ownership of these things now, and Archie settled with him out of court. There's nothing Archie or Sega can ever do to stop him from making this shit, or talking about how these characters used to be in the Sonic universe. They're powerless to stop this. Now, according to what Penders has said, Archie can still obtain limited use of these characters and settings from him as per their settlement under some conditions, which include royalties, the amounts of which, the percentages of which have not been disclosed, and ownership acknowledgement, of course. I think that's only fair. But Archie has never even bothered to try and use them, and neither has anybody else. No one, including Archie, has ever disclosed why that is. This leads me to believe that Ken is the one who's in charge of what parts of that settlement are public and which parts are private. We have no idea what else is in the settlement other than some of the stuff I'm about to tell you about. It could be some crazy shit. We don't know. All this shit also inspired some other creators that work for the Archie comic series, like Carl Bollers, to also claim ownership of their characters somewhere in the midst of this turmoil. And Archie, of course, just purged all those characters too during the second Super Genesis wave that happened in issue 252. Archie supposedly has never contacted any of these other creators about all this copyright shit though. Smart move, Archie. The smartest thing you've done since the fucking shit began with this. Here's another smart move Archie's probably doing now. Making sure they store their contracts in places where they won't lose them and they can't be stolen or destroyed. I guarantee you no comic book company will ever make that mistake again, and if they do, boy howdy will they be the laughing stock of another video. In addition to all this shit, part of this settlement includes some new mandates that Sega released that covers all Sonic content ever. Movies, games, TV shows, comics, fucking toys. Toys. They can't even make toys. Now there's like 20 of these stipulations in this mandate, or series of mandates rather. I'm not gonna read all of them here. There'll be a link in the description. You can go read them all if you fucking want to. I'm not doing that shit. These are also just ones that have been made public in this link. We don't know what else is in there. Some of my favorites of these are the strict and sometimes really puzzling inclusions here. Sega specific original characters are not permitted familial relationships unless already established, like Cream the Rabbit and Vanilla the Rabbit, with some limited exceptions. Charles the Hedgehog, for example. Archie Comics Publishing exclusive characters Sally, Rotor, Bunny, Antoine are permitted, however. to have familiar relationships, I guess. Main and or significant characters are forbidden in forming intimate or love relationships. Archie Comics publishing exclusive characters are permitted, however, Bunny and Antoine, but not with Sega's characters, Sonic the Hedgehog and Sally Acorn. Why? If you're able to use these characters in your comic still, this is Sega didn't write this. This is stuff Ken is forcing them to fucking do, because he doesn't want these characters to ever have a relationship outside of like what he's writing for them, or he doesn't want characters he feels like he has more ownership of than he really does to continue to have the relationships that they had changed in the future by some other writer. Ken, you're a monster. I love you. You're going way too far with this. Archie Comics Publishing are forbidden to reference Sonic the Hedgehog the movie, Sonic Underground, or Sonic X, unless granted special permission from Sega Incorporated. Again, why? Archie Comics Publishing is forbidden to use the character Dr. Eggman Nega unless specifically granted permission from Sega Incorporated. Sonic's home planet is no longer permitted to be referenced as Mobius, be it light, dark, prime, or otherwise. Sonic is not allowed to lose. He can be put down and experience hardship, but he's not allowed to completely fail. Ken, you're really limiting what they can do with this character. He's not allowed to fail ever? Whose idea was this? Why? Who benefits from it? You know, usually when you see a terrible idea, you can look at this terrible idea like, you know, just opening the borders and letting any immigrants across that you want, you know, whatever. Just everybody has amnesty. Doesn't matter what you've done. Just come on in. We're not going to vet anybody. We're not going to make sure they are who they say they are. We're not going to check their credit. We're not going to check their records or their employment history or anything like that. Just come on over. Everybody who can walk across the border or wheel across the border is a fucking citizen now. That's a terrible idea. Who benefits from that though? It's a terrible idea, and you wonder, wow, who would want that? If you want to know who wants that to happen, look at who benefits from it. Who benefits from people from other countries just swarming in here? The party that's catering to them for their votes. Because if they outnumber the citizens, they'll always vote for the people who are giving them the most benefits. In this case though, who benefits from Sonic not being allowed to fail? Ken can't write stuff with Sonic in it, and now Sega can't write anything where Sonic gets his ass kicked or like fucks up and does something wrong and fails. They can't do it no more. Who benefits from it? Whose idea was this? Original Sega characters are to conform and stay conformed to their modern designs as of Sonic the Hedgehog issue 71. None are allowed to change or modify their existing wardrobe or wear any different wardrobe at all, regardless of the story context. So if they go to Freezy Mountain or something, I don't fucking know what the places are called. Green Hill Zone, that's the industrial zone, that's chemical plant. That's the only Sonic stuff I know. If they go someplace real cold, you're telling me these motherfuckers can't put jackets on? They just gotta draw them like what, naked with shoes like they normally are? They gotta do that? Who benefits from this? Sega exclusive characters cannot be killed off. Whilst Archie comic characters are not mentioned in this mandate, it remains unclear whether this rule may apply to them also. Sounds like a lot of this shit is clear as mud, Ken. I think that's by design. Penders, boy, I like your style. Sonic and Sega exclusive characters are not allowed to show excessive emotion. They're not allowed to show. This is my favorite one. This is my favorite one. Where do you draw the line legally at what is excessive emotion? Whose idea was this? Who wrote it? Why did everybody agree to it? What is excessive emotion for a cartoon character? They kind of have to be they're expressive. They're like cartoon characters. They kind of have to be a little excessive. Otherwise everything looks like this shit, the fucking Ken Penders stuff he's making now, which leads me to believe that was his idea. Like, just a curse on the comic. Like, you can't make comics good anymore. Fuck you. Yeah. Watch out if you try to make these comics good and make the characters express emotion at all in their faces. I'm gonna fucking sue you for breaching this fucking settlement. We all know Ken's kind of a litigious piece of shit. I mean, he sued EA over a game that had stuff in it that he didn't even have copyrighted until 2 years after the game was released. So it's not out of the question that he might sue him again Oh, actually, here's a, he might not be done. Here on October 20th, 2015, Ken makes a bold claim. Maybe certain comic book publishers don't believe in living up to their side of the bargain, but I do. Don't blame me for what happens next. What happened, Ken? Did they show too much emotion in a Sonic comic? Did they have some relationship between two characters that you don't fucking approve of? Is the Sonic comic just your fucking personal fan fiction forever now? When are you gonna let these people just write stories again? Fucking just, you got what you wanted. You got a ownership of this shit. As of this video being made, it's 2019. It's been almost 6 years since all this stuff was settled, dude. Let these people write the stories they want. Give these new people who are coming in, right? You were a new writer one time. Imagine if you had to work under these stipulations because some asshole put this on a company. They've been punished enough. Open this shit back up and let them fucking write the stories they want to write so that they can get what they want out on the shelf and fans can fucking read what they want from the comic. Stop fucking being this way, dude. What the fuck is the matter with you? These are also just the mandates Sega has disclosed, like I said, to the public. There could be more, but Ken, of course, has been real shadowy about what all is in the settlement. I mean, Ken clearly seems to have walked away with what he intended to walk away with, though. And Sega and Archie definitely fucking bit the dust on this shit. Now, is Ken in the right for wanting some ownership of these characters? Like I said, it may be an unpopular belief, but I agree that he is entitled to some ownership. You know, it might be like 1 to 10%. It might not be something he could stop them from it might not be something he could stop them from making movies, TV series, games, toys, comics with. But I believe that he created this stuff, and if it's being used and it's his creation, he created it from nothing while he was writing for Archie. You know, I believe, morally speaking, regardless of whatever contract may or may not have existed, morally speaking, I believe that these artists, these writers are entitled to some percentage, some royalties, and at least, acknowledgement of ownership of the characters within reason. It doesn't have to fucking have on the cover of the comic, featuring Ken Penders, featuring comics and characters and shit by Ken Penders. Whoa, stroke your dick. Like, it doesn't have to do that. Just credit him or something, like, and the little thing in the first page where it has like, pencils by so-and-so, blah, 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 writer, Mark Millar, whoever. And then underneath that just being like with, characters used with permission of Ken Penders, and then they have the characters written out. It's a pain in the ass, but it's a way to make sure that artist's work, the stuff that he created, not the stuff he worked with that was already made, but the stuff that he created from nothing, is acknowledged. I agree that's fair, morally speaking. If he signs a contract that says that, that ain't the case, then that's on you, buddy. You shouldn't sign that contract. Nobody should be signing contracts like that. If everybody stops signing contracts like that, they'll have to change the way they do those contracts. But nobody's going to do that because, 19, 20-year-old kids who fucking roll up to a comic book convention and say, hey, I want to write for Image Comics. I got a cool zombie story. Zombies versus ninjas. Like, they're going to hire them, and then they're going to be a writer for an official comic book company, and that's exciting. That's going to get them laid. That's going to get their willies wet, and they don't care, what they got to sign. With Image Comics, of course, it's a little bit different because you do actually retain ownership, I think, of your property 100%. They just help you publish. Image is different. Image was a company that was actually founded on those principles, if what I know is correct. Like, if this was me, right, and I wrote for the Sonic comic and I created these characters, these settings, and I felt so entitled to this that I had to swoop in like a hawk and just snatch the fucking copyright out from under these companies, Sega, Archie Comics. I would then be like, okay, I got ownership of these characters. You're gonna give me royalties if you use them, but I want to make this reasonable because I love these characters and I want to see them used again in stories. People, fans like these characters, and I don't want them to not see them in places and worlds with other characters that they were created around. I don't want to take this away from people. That's just me. Ken, that's a different story. He's like, yeah, sure, you can use them. You pay me royalties. And then the royalties, we don't know what they are. And Archie won't comment on it, probably because he told him that they fucking can't. There's probably one line in this settlement, one stipulation in this settlement somewhere that says Sega and Archie Comics keep their fucking mouths shut about the settlement unless Ken gives them permission to talk about a part of it. And I can't wait until one day when there's some 4chan post somewhere or 8chan post somewhere. Hopefully it'll be on 8chan, not fucking 4chan. 4chan's a fucking shithole now. Where somebody just lays this whole settlement out and you never find out who did it. And Ken can't sue anybody. Fuck you. But yeah, I do think people who create stuff, even if they're working for another company, if they create something completely new, I'm not talking about altering a setting or altering a character. Like, I think some of the shit he claimed was like cyborg versions of existing characters and like a futuristic version of an existing setting that they... Like, you don't fucking... Ken, that's not your shit, man. You took something, you fast forwarded it 20 fucking 5 years. Whatever. That's not... new. That's something that's been changed. You've altered it. You didn't create it. You didn't make it. Having no way to have ownership over this shit is how old creators who work their fucking asses off, like Jack Kirby, Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel, Bernie Wrightson, these people are still unrecognized by a lot of normies who just watch like comic book movies and shit today. These people work their asses off on like, you know, different types of shit. Jack Kirby created a lot of the Marvel comic characters with Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel, they made Superman. I don't think a lot of people who see like the DC movies know who the fuck those people are. It may be in the credits somewhere, I don't know, but for years, like, they weren't like famous people. It was just Superman was famous. Hell, Marvel even sued Gary Frederick, the guy who created Ghost Rider. Marvel sued him for drawing fan art of fucking Ghost Rider and like signing stuff. They sued him for this. This shit does nothing. Like the stuff that these the stuff that these publishers do to their creators and the stuff that people like Ken Penders do to their publishers does nothing but drive lines between fans and creators and the publishers. It just further divides these people who want to work together and get this stuff fucking out, sold, and enjoyed. Everybody wants a piece of these characters and these stories and these books and shit. An example of Gary, a publisher took advantage of a contract to treat one of its creators very unfairly, in my opinion, and ripped his creation away from him to where he couldn't even draw fucking fan art of it. This pissed a lot of people off, Marvel. I know you know that. A lot of people were fucking pissed off at you. And somehow a couple people took Marvel's side on this and said that Gary Frederick was in the wrong for drawing fan art of a fucking character. There are people who've never worked for Marvel, all right? They've never fucking worked for a company in their whole life that publishes comic books, and they draw fucking fan art of shit online and at conventions and they sell it. I know people who do this. It's never a problem. But it's a problem with this guy because he says he created Ghost Rider and he fucking kind of did. Either way, when this kind of shit happens, majority of fans usually take the creator's side of things. That's not the case with Mr. Penders. The case of Ken Penders is the antithesis of this. He is a blazing example of when what some might call justice spills over into outright vengeance. The same result is achieved. Fans split over it, but in this particular case, most of them sided with the publisher and the owner of the property, who they feel like got fucked over by their employee. And it ensures that no creator will ever again be able to claim any kind of ownership over the creation if they work with a publisher who isn't someone who already agrees to give that to them. Nobody will ever be able to bargain for more ownership of their character. That's because of you, Ken. Thanks. I mean, Ken sued EA over a game that was released for a full year before he even thought about filing for a copyright of anything to do with Archie Comics characters that he made. And then when the case was dismissed, he filed an identical action again 4 fucking days later. And then when that got dismissed, he fucking appealed it, only for it to get shot down again. What did you gain from this, Ken? What did you hope to gain from this? What could you possibly have hoped to gain from this? The fucking game didn't even make any damn money. Even if you won this shit, what would have been the fucking point? To annoy EA and fucking Sega until they settled out of court for some crazy shit like what you did to Archie and Sega? What was your ideal end game here? What ending were you trying to choose in this fucking book? I mean, at least you got a settlement out of Archie and Sega for that shit. But suing EA 3 times for this shit that came out a year before you even filed for copyright for it, that's just fucking pure madness. It is the opinion of this man that while Ken was seeking something that he rightfully should have had, an agreement on how much ownership he was owed should have been written in the contract that was signed and formally stored as to not be lost or mishandled in the beginning of his employment, or at least when he started creating and changing characters. The way he pursued a retroactive copyright claim on EA is just malicious and fruitless, even in comparison to how EA usually conducts their fucking business. One of the main points in contention in the case against EA was the character Shade the Echidna. Penders claimed that she wasn't legally distinct enough from his own character, Julie Sue, which is, you know, I don't know what his naming convention is. There's Julie Sue, Laura Sue, all this shit. This sucks. This fucking sucks, man. Don't name characters stuff like this. This sounds like, I don't know, you might as well name them fucking Gretchen. Just name them all Gretchen and call it a day. Because Julie Sue and Shade the Echidna have similar armor. They're both echidnas that betrayed a legion of evil echidna and use technology to fight, but they're not the same character, Ken. They're very similar, but they're legally distinct. You see what I'm saying? You can't. This is why you lost the case. That and you didn't have copyright on the shit till a year after it's fucking released. You can't retroactively do that. Can you imagine if New Line Cinema sued the creators of Rick and Morty, if they went up to fucking Dan, whatever the fuck his name is, and Justin Roiland, and they were like, hey, you guys in Adult Swim and Turner, we're gonna fucking give you a cease and desist. You cannot play episodes of Rick and Morty in it with Scary Terry anymore. Wouldn't it be more like if Adult Swim sued New Line Cinema? If Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon, that's his fucking name, Dan Harmon, Adult Swim, Turner, whoever, if these guys got together and they said, you know, oh geez, Rick, you know, this Scary Terry guy, he's pretty similar to Freddy Krueger. Yeah, I know, Morty. We gotta sue him. We're gonna sue him to oblivion. Oh, but Rick, it looks like he came out before our character. I don't know. Jeez, are you sure that's a good idea, Rick? I don't know. Yeah, it's a perfect idea, Morty. What the fuck are you saying? Shut the fuck up, you little shit. Like, that would be like, if that's what happened. If it came out after and the copyright, you know, and all that shit was thereafter, and then they tried to sue the original creation. What Ken has left in his wake isn't a good Sonic story that can be built upon or probably ever used again. It's a void filled with characters a lot of people really loved and cared about, and they will absolutely never ever see again. And anything apart from the nightmare fuel that Ken is making on his own. This is what you get when you don't check your fucking mail.